Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be episode 256 for you guys today. And to kick off this week's episode, we'll start off in the world of basketball inside the NBA world. And I'll be breaking down what I've seen this weekend in the NBA playoffs thus far. So we haven't gotten anywhere farther than a game one for most of these teams that I'll cover. Spoiler, I will not be covering the Oklahoma City Thunder versus Sun series just yet in this segment, the Magic versus Pistons in this segment just yet, or the Spurs versus the Trailblazers yet in this segment. So I'll be going over all the other series that have taken place from Saturday afternoon up until this point on the East Coast as I record this in the evening time. So we'll start off on the East Coast. Yesterday, the Cleveland Cavaliers jumped out to a 1-0 start against the Toronto Raptors early on in the NBA playoffs when they defeated them by a score of 126-113 yesterday in the NBA playoffs. So thoughts on game one. The Cleveland Cavaliers offense did exactly what they were supposed to and expected to do against this inexperienced Toronto Raptors team in the NBA playoffs. I said the series would go to 6 with the Cavs putting away the Toronto Raptors by game 6, but the Cleveland Cavaliers offense was hot as a forest fire. They came in with a lot of momentum and they got a really good home victory game 1 against the Toronto Raptors. And Donovan Mitchell scored 32 points. Max Strus had a total of 24 points. That's a career high playoff margin or playoff points scored in a playoff game for him. 24 points. James Harden had 22 points with 10 assists. Evan Mobley had 17 points. So that's already 4 players in double-digit figures for the Cleveland Cavaliers yesterday in the victory against the Toronto Raptors. And like I said, Max Strus, this is a playoff career high for a player that has playoff experience with my Miami Heat a couple years ago when they went all the way to the NBA Finals. And of course, we knew he missed basically 95% of the NBA regular season, 67 games, due to a broken foot injury. Looked really good and really looked like he could be a very reliable offensive piece for the Cleveland Cavaliers as they go on this playoff run this year in the Eastern Conference. But I think the Toronto Raptors will have to step up defensively if they want to have a chance to hang with the Cleveland Cavaliers in this series. And if they don't play their brand of defense, they don't have a chance to get past this Cleveland Cavaliers offense and the Cavs in a 7-game series. And the defense needs to step up. I just mentioned 4 players that scored double-digit figures for the Cleveland Cavaliers. A total of 5 players actually scored double-digit figures for the Cleveland Cavaliers in the victory Saturday. And that's not good enough defensively for the Toronto Raptors. So if you want to have a chance to slow down their top 3 scorers of Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and Evan Mobley in the paint, and you gave up 126 points on the road. So game 1 is very crucial for any 7-game series in sports, especially in the NBA. And game 1 doesn't define a victory or a loss in a series, but it's the tone setter. Because for a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers that had their way offensively, scored a total 126 points, they're going to have momentum heading into that game Monday night against the Toronto Raptors. They're going to believe those star players can get going because there's nobody to stop them on the defensive side of the ball for the Toronto Raptors. So I think the Cavs will get past the Toronto Raptors in 6. That was my prediction last week. I'm sticking to it because they have the playoff experience and they have the offensive scores with a lot of confidence to keep going on in a 7-game series. Plus, they only need 3 more games to win this series. You play another game Monday night at home in Cleveland. Your best case scenario, you win at least 1 out of the 2 games in Toronto for game 3, game 4. You come back to Cleveland game 5, get another win, and you take it from there. That's your best case scenario if you're the Cavs. But the other game that took place Saturday in the Eastern Conference was the New York Knicks. They jumped out to a 1-0 lead over the Atlanta Hawks in the series early on. They defeated the Atlanta Hawks by a score of 113-102 yesterday in Madison Square Garden. So I thought game 1 was actually a fun game between the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. Game 1 yesterday in the NBA playoffs in the Eastern Conference. And the game 1 was a fast-paced type of offensive game. I think you'll see this throughout the 7-game series between the Knicks and the Hawks. And I expect that because these are 2 offenses that play fast-paced and they like to put up points very early in the shot clock to get their offense going so they can gain momentum as the game goes on. But the fact that the New York Knicks crowd in Madison Square Garden still chanted "fuck Trae Young," even though Trae Young got traded to the Washington Wizards way before this playoff series just shows how much the New York Knicks truly hate Trae Young. But that was hilarious. But moving on, the ball movement for the New York Knicks was great in their victory game 1 against the Atlanta Hawks. And I think the ball movement for Mike Brown's offense is going to be very pivotal if the New York Knicks want to go far in the Eastern Conference, possibly get to the NBA Finals. And Jalen Brunson was getting to his spots offensively. Yeah, he didn't have the best performance shooting from the field, shooting 9 for 22 from the field, but he did go 7 for 8 at the free throw line, made it count, those points count, and finished the game with a total of 28 points. I think he'll have a better shooting performance from this point on and the series between themselves and the Atlanta Hawks. Karl Anthony Towns had a big contribution offensively as well, finished the game with 25 points and scored 19 out of his 25 points in the second half. So he was red hot in the second half, carried a lot of momentum. He will carry a lot of momentum into game 2 against the Hawks. And also starters like OG Anunoby and Josh Hart stepped up, scoring double-digit figures in this game in the victory against the Hawks. Josh Hart was favoring his ankle in game 1 in the second half. That's something to pay attention to if there's an ankle injury that we need to follow for game 2 or moving forward for the remainder of the NBA playoffs for the Knicks. But I do give credit to the Atlanta Hawks because late in the fourth quarter, they did have a late game push where they scored 11 straight points, cutting into that fourth quarter deficit, but it was just too little too late for the Atlanta Hawks to steal game 1 in Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. And I'm sticking with my prediction that I said last week. I think the New York Knicks will win this series in 5. I think the Atlanta Hawks will either win game 3 or game 4 when they go back to Atlanta for the series. But overall, the New York Knicks just have the better overall talent. And I do give the Atlanta Hawks credit. They did make a crazy push in the second half in the Eastern Conference to avoid the play-in tournament vortex that they've been stuck in with the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls over the last couple of years. And they've gotten better since they traded away Trae Young and Porzingis. They got a lot of young talent over there, but they don't have enough talent, enough star power to keep up the New York Knicks in a 7-game series, and they lack playoff experience, this young group does. So I think the New York Knicks will put them away in game 5, and the Knicks will move on to much bigger things in the Eastern Conference. Oh, and this game just took place a few hours ago. In the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics just had their way. BTA special against the Philadelphia 76ers, defeated them by a score of 123-91. Now, 76ers fans, I'm going to ask you guys this. Do you guys still want the Boston Celtics? Because that showed game 1 that the Philadelphia 76ers were clearly not prepared for the Boston Celtics. And it's going to be a long series for Philadelphia 76ers and the fans out there in Philadelphia. And the 76ers have not beaten the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series dating all the way back to 1982. So is that really what you wanted? When you were up in the play-in tournament game, chanting, "We want Boston," did you really want that 2nd seed versus 7th seed matchup? Do you still want it now? I think it's going to be a long series. I think, honestly, they will get swept. The 76ers will get swept by the Boston Celtics. This is a dangerous Boston Celtics team. The 76ers just don't have enough star power to hang around. I give Tyrese Maxey, their new franchise player, a lot of credit for stepping up game 1 offensively. I give Paul George credit for being a good offensive dependable player in game 1. But without Joel Embiid, they don't have a chance to defeat this Boston Celtics team. And he could miss the entire series, this entire 7-game series, coming off that surgery he just had a few weeks before the NBA regular season ended. So I don't see them winning. And the 76ers just didn't have an answer for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Both scored over 25 points or had 25 points or more in the victory against the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Celtics team, when healthy, they're nearly unstoppable. And you've seen all the work that they did all year long. When Jason Tatum was still recovering from a torn Achilles injury, they overachieved. Nobody expected them to be a legit heavyweight contender in the Eastern Conference, and they're doing that. Now they get the duo of Tatum and Brown back together. They just won an NBA championship 2 years ago together. They have the playoff experience, and they never trailed in this game against the Philadelphia 76ers. At one point, they were up by 35 points, and Joe Mazzulla was just giving extra minutes to other players for this blowout victory against the Philadelphia 76ers. Long series, but I don't see them getting the job done at all, or even winning a game if you're the Philadelphia 76ers. So just pack your bags and get ready for an early off season. But let's move on to the Western Conference. The Denver Nuggets defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves yesterday to jump out to a 1-0 lead in the series between themselves and the Minnesota Timberwolves. They defeated the Timberwolves yesterday by a score of 116-105. So based off of what I seen in game one Saturday between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves, this series is definitely going to 7. This was a physical game. There was tensions were running high between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. They know each other very well, have matched up against each other several times over the last couple of years in the Western Conference of the playoffs. And I think this will overall be the best series to follow in the first round, Eastern Conference or Western Conference for the NBA playoffs. But the game was tensions running high yesterday. David Edelman, head coach for the Denver Nuggets, got a technical foul. I mean, at one point, Josh McDaniels, after he scored a bucket, turned around and pushed Nikola Jokic from behind. Tensions were running high. Julius Randle and Aaron Gordon picked up technical fouls. Like, this is going to be a physical 7-game series between these two respective teams that don't want to be first-round exits. And there's something to follow here between the two big men in this 7-game series, and that's Rudy Gobert and Nikola Jokic. Now, last week I did say Nikola Jokic was going to be too much. It was going to be barbecue chicken alert for the big man to have any type of defensive hope against Nikola Jokic. I said that about Rudy Gobert. I said that about Naz Reid. I said that about Julius Randle. But in the first half of game one, I will give Rudy Gobert credit because he was clamping up Nikola Jokic, and he was very active on the defensive side of the ball against Nikola Jokic, forcing him to turn over the ball several times in the first half, some sloppy turnovers, and he held him to 6 points in the first half. Now, he did turn it up in the second half, finished the game with a triple-double. Nikola Jokic did. Finished the game with 25 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists with a bloody nose and all. And in the second half, the Denver Nuggets started to wake up and smell the coffee. Because in the second half, they went on a huge 14-0 lead, or 14-0 run, I should say, in the middle of the third quarter. And in that run, the Denver Nuggets held the Minnesota Timberwolves to 0 points during that dominant run for 3 to 4 minutes. So that was a good display of defensive basketball, good defensive effort, and a good offensive effort going on that run in the middle of the third quarter. That helped separate themselves from the Minnesota Timberwolves in the game. And Jamal Murray stepped up. He went 16 for 16 shooting at the free throw line and helped the Denver Nuggets put up offensive points. And he finished the game with 30 points, but I need to see better effort from him shooting from the three-point range. He went 0 for 8 from the three-point line in the victory against the Minnesota Timberwolves game one. And Anthony Edwards, even though he missed a big chunk of the final stretch, I should say, of the regular season, missing time with a knee injury, I think he stepped up well. This is definitely going to be a competitive series, goes all the way to 7. I'm still sticking with the Denver Nuggets to win the series in 7. And then the final series that I'll cover in this segment, the Los Angeles Lakers. They jumped out to a 1-0 lead in the series between themselves and the Houston Rockets. Now, the Lakers defeated the Houston Rockets last night by a score of 107-98. Now, game one honestly got away from the Houston Rockets. It got away from them, and you don't want that in a series that you're supposed to win. You don't want to let the underdogs hang around longer than what they're supposed to and gain confidence. Now, like I said a few moments ago, game one is a tone setter. It doesn't win series, it doesn't lose series, but for an underdog team that does not have their two best scoring options, the Lakers and Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves for this series, you are giving the Lakers a lot of confidence, and they're starting to believe that they can get past the Rockets in a 7-game series. They only need 3 more games, and the Lakers took full advantage of the fact that Kevin Durant missed last night's game due to a bruised knee injury. So the Rockets and the Lakers were missing their best scoring options for game one heading into the 7-game series on Saturday night. But the Lakers' offense was truly the story of the game, and that's the reason why they won this game. The Lakers' offense as a team shot 60.6% from the field, and they got the luck that I was talking about defensively, because I said if the Lakers were going to win this 7-game series, they needed some magical luck for the Rockets to get cold. Yeah, they got some luck that Kevin Durant missed game one with the bruised knee injury, but everybody else for the Houston Rockets did not do their job shooting the basketball, because the Lakers held the Rockets to a total of 37.6% shooting from the field in that victory Saturday night in game one against the Houston Rockets. And LeBron James got some help. It wasn't Bronny James as a second scoring option, but Luke Kennard, who they traded for before the NBA trade deadline, stepped up. He carried the load for the Los Angeles Lakers offensively last night. Stepped up and scored 27 points for the Los Angeles Lakers in this victory, and got hot shooting from three-point range, and that's a playoff high for Luke Kennard. 27 points, I'll take that if you're LeBron James and Los Angeles Lakers. And LeBron James stepped up as well. Had 19 points with 13 assists, getting his teammates going offensively for the Los Angeles Lakers in the win. But as critical as I was about DeAndre Ayton heading into the series, he played really good. Let's see if he could keep it up. He had 19 points, 11 rebounds. I want to see if he could keep it up in the 7-game series to give the Lakers a chance to go on a run in the West. But Rockets players stepped up well, like Sengun had a good game, Jabari Parker had a good game, Amen Thompson. All three of these players had good games. But you can't let a team like the Lakers hang around like this in a 7-game series and give them belief. Shooting over 60%, anybody's going to believe they can win a 7-game series. And the Rockets, they cannot let Game 2 slide from them. They cannot let Game 2 slide from them in LA. And that if the Lakers win Game 2, we got a series. We got a series, because that would have to mean this would have to be extended to 6 for the Rockets to even win the series, and possibly Game 7 if the Lakers go up 3-0. So I think for the Rockets' sake, they play good, but they got to be better defensively, and they cannot allow the Lakers to shoot over 60% from the field. And they got to have Kevin Durant back from a bruised knee injury. He's got to play Game 2. If you don't have Kevin Durant for Game 2 playing in LA again, the Lakers might jump out to a 2-0 lead, and then all hell might break loose for the Houston Rockets, because then it'd be a wasted season. You trade away Jalen Green after you were the second best team in the Western Conference last year. You trade away Jalen Green, and you get Kevin Durant. It'd be a waste of a year if the Houston Rockets underachieve, losing to this Los Angeles Lakers team that their best player currently is a 41-year-old LeBron James. So we'll see what happens. But those are my early thoughts on the NBA playoffs thus far in the NBA playoffs.